concept of center has been widely used by most chess players to explain that every opening requires you to fight for the middle. And yet we get to see a lot of examples where not fighting for the center is actually quite fine. So how do we know? How do we really decide? To tell you this, to answer that question basically, the first thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to point out to an idea. Center is not an advantage in the opening. Now, there is the possibility for it to become an advantage, but it is not an advantage that early on. That prospect of it may becoming actually just something very valuable, it could help us, in the longer run. But it takes time to build and get ready. So what I'd like to talk to you about is a game that was played again between two very strong masters of the past. And so basically, the game started out with c4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, g3, bishop g2. And this time, instead of playing with the short castles, white actually picked up to do the move of pawn to d4. Now, this is a very interesting idea. White does not choose the conventional simple setup, and instead, he actually picks up to do a move that's breaking, the center opened immediately. Now, why would actually white do that? What would be the reason? Well, the real reason for this move is because white would love to get his own light square bishop up in the play. He would love to get the attack and possibly some advances. And it would look good. Yes, it would. So that's what d4 is all about. It is a fine move that sets up the control for white's pieces. Now, what's out there? After e takes to the d, knight takes to the d, see the first rule of being good or more successful in the center like that. You have to have more pieces lined up to it. It's not going to work unless you actually get that possibility. With the white bishop being on the g2 right now, we understand the value. There is a great move to go for. There's a great square to go for, and we have a beautiful possibility to advance. Step by step, things work great. So what's actually happening in that type of position? Well, after that move, basically black has a little bit to worry in that moment. So he actually focused on a different type of idea. He played with the short castles, rook to the e8. And let's see. After that move, of course, now this is a big question, what is actually coming up in this type of position is the move. It's a very small move, but it helps out a lot. It actually gives white the chance to play knight c2. Now, what is this move all about? It's just a very strange looking candidate that you could almost say it's just why would a move like that even be played in this position? It doesn't have to be, right? No, it does not. But white did it. Why? Because you want to sustain your control in the center. You can create it, yes, but sustaining it is a much more difficult idea, because in most times what you actually need to do is to think about, how do I get more pieces around it? How do I actually get more opportunities to build towards that? And with that in mind, you can eventually be successful, but it's not going to be easy. So white is doing it very nicely, very interestingly, by first setting up his own knight on the c2. Looks like a backside move. It really doesn't look such a good idea at first, but there is more to it. Take a look. Knight c2, black plays d6, and now white plays with the move of knight to e3. It is a great move because now white is able to plan ahead for a move of knight to the d5, which is a good candidate. And the rest is also quite decent. It's not just the white knight that's going to step into the d5. It's everything else around it that actually feels solid too. This is good. Knight e3, knight e5, b3. See, everything that white builds in this position is built towards the center. It's not built because white just wants to feel cool or he'd like to do something around that area or this other area. No. We are building it because we would like to make sure that our pieces have the chance to step forward, advance, and get ready. So what we're doing is exactly this. Like, let's just take the chance and get more. Knight takes to the g4, bishop takes to the g4. That's what black actually played along. And so after the move of bishop takes to the g4 with the nice pin that black has created, white did bishop to the b2. Yes, I mean, the more pieces we bring closer, more possibilities there are going to be. Like f4 and everything can work out. So black played with queen d7, queen d2. Anything that black sort of attempts on the king's side is probably not going to do anything that's scary or dangerous. White can do knight d5, so the position remains pretty good. Yes, takes time, but by doing it on the right area of the board, white has a lot of great possibilities, a lot of interesting ideas out there, and you see, so this is great. Now, with that in mind, surely black is feeling a little behind and bad in that type of position. So what did he actually do? So he played with bishop there, and then rook to the d1, actually. So this is great. It's very interesting. Then it's you know, it looks bad almost for him. There's nothing. We have our rook that is brilliant. Most of black's pieces are actually going to be horrible, and actually that's just the way to do it. So it's very strong, quite powerful, and necessary out there. This is what we're looking for. So like after that type of position, and let's take a look. So this is the move. Black is going a little bit away, and so he's got a little bit to worry. More problems, definitely some more difficulties. And let's take a look and see. After rook d1, a5, white plays the move of knight to the d5. What a very valuable idea. All the pieces in place, pressure is there, and black is feeling backward. So that definitely fits in with the attack. So what did black do afterward, after that knight d5 move? Actually, so after knight to the d5, bishop takes to the g2, white did a move, king takes to the g2. He's actually stepping up well. He's got a great support, really nice command and possibilities. And then we can think about moving with e4, possibly even f4, and the development is wonderful. So this is great. I would say to you that one of the most important things of any play, of any plan, is the idea to strengthen and take the time to build. Now, this is not an easy thing to do, actually, but it is a great opportunity. So after king takes to the g2 at the moment, we can see the major problem of black. We have moves like e4, we got moves like f4, have resources out there against the opponent, and that's wonderful. So what's happened now if the king takes the g2? Well, black played queen to the c6. He was hoping to move a little up and take some better control. But it doesn't matter, because then what we're doing is now white plays with the move pawn up to the e4. He takes some of the space away from black. Actually feels really great here, if you think of it. Step by step. Let's just go. Well, after that, black played with the move of pawn up here. And then after that type of move, then white plays alongside bishop c3. See, it's very interesting how white builds on that. He actually sets up the position under, to control. And also there is a lot more, because we're going to be playing with moves like f4 very quickly. We're going to have the ability to challenge the black knight and set him back. So after bishop to the c3, white actually gets all the nice space, the control, and the possibilities. And then we could see what this is really about. It's always about one thing. Take the opportunity to get your pieces, to build them, and move close. So now we can have moves like f4. We can have the challenge against the opponent. So should he actually choose to move this knight, we can exchange the. You can very quickly trade off the bishop and everything. And so it is wonderful. I mean, really, it is a very easy way to get the resources happening. Step by step, beautiful and easy, little by little. Actually, it's just very good. And now black obviously has a big problem. So he's not going to have too many shots that he can take. So what did black actually pick to do in this type of position? Well, he couldn't choose too many things, actually. So he picked up to do after bishop to c3, play with the move of knight d7. b6. Queen b2, f6, rook e1. And I mean, this is where we could even stop the kind of situation here. Because there's nothing that really could justify black's opening. Most of his pieces are awful. He has very little to no good development. It's almost everything feels bad. And so that gives white a brilliant opportunity to just step forth, get ready, and then do more. With moves like f4 and everything else, this just feels like a really terrible situation for black with a lot of problems. So that's why we're doing it. What is great about this is that white was successful with the most important thing that he wanted to achieve. Get the pieces right, set them up close, and develop to attack the opponent. See, white doesn't even need to do anything. He can just bring over all those forces that were most necessary and let the game begin. Let everything sort of happen and come through by itself. And it will. It always does. Now in that position, obviously black is having a lot of extra problems, and then you can't move out. That simply. What were the key elements that can help you to build such a position? First thing, center control. You don't have to do d4 necessarily. There are plenty of lines which keep it more subtle. But the d4 variation is very important due to the fact that after the exchange, we can actually give our bishop and the remainder of our pieces an opportunity to threaten or attack against him, as well as give them a strong shot to threaten the opponent. It's beautiful. Our pieces can actually move forward, and they can attack against him in many different ways. So this was a great way to go for, and in fact, after edicts to the d, knight x to the d, short castles, rook e8, and knight to the c2, white plays the move of knight e4, b3, exchanging, and then bishop to the d2, really helped white out with the possibility to build up on the attack. And he made it great, especially with that center that we get to see, the e4, d4, and d5, the pressure that they create against the f6, and all those bad pieces, so to speak, that black has to worry about. It's wonderful. And actually it gives white a great ability to keep the attack going, and to keep the pressure moving. So it's a wonderful type of tactical idea. It was a great resource to just help white to build. Now the middle game is not as interesting, I like to say. It's a good middle game to talk about, but really it's just white advancing and attacking. But the d4 idea is something you might want to use as much. Let's see this idea being utilized in almost a perfect matter in this next game. Let's take a look and see what this is all about. Basically, the game started between Bruzon and Quezada, so it was very interesting. So then white played with the move of knight f3, pawn up to the g6 out there, and actually after that candidate, white played, okay, so g6, white played d4, pawn takes to the d, and in fact, this is quite helpful. Now we're playing it, but we're playing it early. And actually, we have the opportunity to follow up maybe with the move of g3 plus bishop to the g2, and it works great. Bishop g7, knight to the knight x to the c6, and actually after that type of move, we have everything under control. Like so, step by step, let's get the pieces going. With that knight x to the c6, black did a move of b x to the c6, and so when this actually came out, white played. So after the exchange recaptures and the move of pawn up to the g3 that really happened, we see the value. Now we have a very powerful kind of resource of setting up our bishop in the g2. We could consider challenging against black on the d5, maybe against c6 too, and so on. And it's a pretty good development. So what do we do next after g3? Well, basically black played with the move of knight to the e7, and this was the moment where white actually picked up to do bishop to the g2. d6, and next move, there was the move of short castles. Black castled, and then white actually played the move queen to the c2. What I really like about this structure is the development. It's not just the fact that white has a great support and the way to advance or attack against black on the c6. There's a lot more to it too. And so we have, while we do have the actual extra tension on c6, white is essentially just setting up for a move like rook to the d1, and then we can have this possibility to play with the move of c5. Maybe we can even think about the move of bishop to f4. This is a great way to go. So actually what's coming up in this type of position is that after queen c2, black plays bishop to f5, and then white plays with the move of pawn to e4. It drives the black bishop right down to the e6 square, and ultimately it helps white to play with the move of c5. This is a great idea to think about because a lot of the times you actually need to be thinking about a great break. So like what we're doing in this case is that white is able to play with the move of a rook to the d1. We can have an extra pressure against the opponent, and then we can have that ability to advance. And so this is a really good way to play it. Not only to thinking about the way and how white's pieces are actually going to start, but we also have this ability to play against the opponent, bishop to the f4. We can have extra tension against d6, and we've got other things, to attack with. This is a great way to go. c5, black played alongside with a move of pawn up to the d5 out there, and actually in this case, white considered playing rook to the d1 very valuable. It's a very interesting type of idea. We see the power, see the value of these pieces, and actually this is a great way to go for. Not to worry, nice ability to come forward with, and actually we have the way to go with moves like bishop to f4 and other type of moves, which is wonderful. Step by step, let's keep going. In fact, after that move, black has a little bit of a problem. I mean, it's not to say that this is going to be a huge issue, but after that, he's got certainly a bit of an issue with the d5. Bishop g4, rook d3. We see the same break in the middle working out perfectly in that type of position. So, actually, this is great. We got this bishop f4 that we could play ahead against. We have the opportunity to follow up against the opponent, as a matter of fact. And then we have this excellent resource of bishop f4, rook to e1, and many other moves that will be quite good. This is an excellent set of pieces. Great development, nice control, and beautiful opportunities to play along with. So what happened after that move? Okay, well, after that candidate, which was right here, essentially black's got a little bit of an extra problem. So Rookie played queen to the c8 in this case, and actually after the move of queen to the c8, white plays with the move of bishop to the Actually, bishop to g5. We have an excellent resource to attack against the opponent, and then we have the opponent just being completely backward. So what happened is that he plays with the move d takes to the e, and then white played bishop takes d4, f6, bishop f4, and you see this is quite valuable. And of course, what you'd like to see in this type of position is the extra pressure that every single white piece is ultimately creating against the opponent. So like actually that's very, very interesting. We can have rook e1, and then we can have move of queen to the a4 played out, maybe even f3, step by step. Taking on the possibility for white to get more pieces in line is perfect. The queen goes up, black captures the pawn, and then white plays bishop takes f5, queen takes f5, queen c4 check, knight takes to the d5 plus rook takes to the d, and so actually after queen to the c2, then queen to d4, and so that's fine. What is so interesting out there is just take the time to build. So like white plays for the move bishop to the e5. It's a great development, but it's middle game already. The whole idea is that white was very powerfully created. Like he had the build up and the power, the pressure. Now let's see an instructive example of the d4 idea played in the game of Evgeny Barev himself. This is really interesting to see because Barev was, and actually still is, one of the greatest players of this opening. And I think that one of the things that matters about this game is how he handled it from the very beginning. Basically, he started off normally. He played knight f3, knight c3, and d4. And then the moment the d4 went through, e4 and knight g5 happened. See the value of that break. There was this challenge that forced black to make a little bit of a weakening in his position. But more importantly, now the idea is that with that weakening that black has created, knight g5, knight f6, and knight h3, white has the opportunity to develop his own pieces and to expand. The brilliant open diagonal that we're getting, that means the diagonal of a1 against h8 and g7, it presents white with a wonderful option to attack against the black king side. And not just that, but also many of the different ways on how that's going to happen. Whether it's going to be through the bishop to the b, through the idea of playing the move of short knight f4, white's command is inevitable. There is a great idea. There is a wonderful type of sequence that we're going to follow. So step by step, white's going to make it great. Knight e5, bishop b2, a5, exchange, and c5. Now, once again, we see the value of the opportunity to just feel stronger. And the value of this is that when you have the proper development, when you have the control, you can actually break, like open up and get the chance to attack him. So like after the d5, we have knight takes d5, knight takes d, bishop takes to the e5. So it's great. And you see, this is the reason why the move d4 is often, the move of d4 as well as bishop e2 is often considered best. White sets up the pieces, then he puts the bishop on the b2, and it naturally limits most of black's own development and his own forces, given that he can't move them out in any way. This is how we do it. So it's pretty good. After the move of bishop b2, a5, exchange, c5, and the exchange, white did not win any material, but he was able to very quickly move along. Put the bishop on d4, rook c1, and now, of course, the piece domination is essential. We're doing it great. Trade, knight f4. Now, of course, later on, the game developed in a very specific way, and I have to say it was different in the middle game. But the opening was very successful and well set. So let's take a look at another example.